And a good spiritual morning to you once again. Thanks for joining me today for a quick chat and, of course, our morning cup of coffee. And I wanted to talk today about the feast day for tomorrow, which is August 29th. Pretty serious feast day. It's the beheading of St. John the Baptist. We celebrate that every year on August 29th, so we're going to get into that a little bit and see if we can glean something for our own spiritual benefit. But before we get serious, first and foremost, shout out to Taylor Swift and Kelsey. I forget which Kelsey brother it is. Is it Travis Kelsey? Which one is she now engaged to be married to? And so congratulations to them. We're all shocked. We're all surprised. I think we all thought that this was, that their relationship was just an NFL stunt to get women to watch football, but apparently not. Apparently it's real. So congratulations to them and to all the Swifties out there who are so happy that she's finally getting engaged. And so let's move on from that and segue. Let's somehow segue from Taylor Swift to the beheading of St. John the Baptist. I don't know how to do that. Speaking of dancing girls, how about that? The story of the beheading. Again, serious stuff, right? Kind of. Just, it's an interesting story. I mean, really, it's a biblical story. More in the Old Testament sort of genre of Bible stories, because this is, of course, the beheading of St. John the Baptist. So obviously, St. John has spoken out against Herod, and especially Herodias, right? Because that's Herod's wife. But she's not really his wife. She is now. But she was his brother's wife. And so St. John is saying, hey, come on. I mean, you got to draw the line somewhere. You've taken your brother's wife as your own wife. And so she's looking for an opportunity to get him beheaded because she doesn't like him, obviously. But Herod, as much as he doesn't like that he's saying, St. John is saying that, he respects St. John. And he's afraid of the people because the people think that St. John is a prophet. So he's not doing anything. He just has him in prison. So finally, it's time to have a party for Herod. And Herodias' daughter, I'm forgetting her name, Salome, I want to say. This is the skanky dancing girl. That was the Taylor Swift reference. Sorry. She dances for Herod, her stepdad. And that's appropriate. Again, biblical, Old Testament. And pleases him so much that he says, ask me whatever you want, up to half of my kingdom, and I'm going to give it to you. Right? Up to half the kingdom. So that's got to be some kind of a dance. She's a talented girl. That's a dance of the seven veils, if I've ever heard one. Maybe no veils. I don't know what kind of dance that was, but so she goes to the mother, and Herodias says to her, ask for the head of St. John the Baptist. I'm sorry to be making light of a very serious story, but it's so kind of gory and terrible. You can either have your stomach turned by it, or you can try to chuckle a little bit at certain parts of it. And so, of course, the daughter does that. Herod has him. He doesn't want to, but because he's given his oath, and because there's other people there at his party that see him, he does it. And so he has him beheaded in prison. The head is put on a platter and brought to the girl, and the girl takes it to her mother. And so the tragic, gory end to, St. John the Baptist, one of the greatest men ever born, according to Christ himself. Those born of the flesh, there's none greater than John. That's quite the testimony from the Son of God himself. And that's how he meets his end. So there's all sorts of directions we can go with. What are we learning from the story? And maybe there's not one clear one we want to take, one clear message. Let's look at a couple just for fun. One, appearances aren't always the most important thing. So realize that Herod does a horrifying thing. He knows is wrong. He knows that John is a righteous person. But because he doesn't want to look bad in front of his guests, he beheads a righteous man because he doesn't want to look bad, because of appearances. And so we should really sometimes not worry so much about the appearance of the thing and worry about the heart of the thing. Let's worry more about pleasing God than pleasing men. That's one take home. That's something to think about. The other one, let's stick to two. Otherwise, it gets a little bit muddy, and the waters are muddied if we come up with too many different points to think about. The other one is Herod seeing something that gives him such pleasure that he's willing to give up half of his kingdom. I can't imagine she was that beautiful or that good of a dancer. I do imagine that he was just that sick, right? That he was just that far gone in terms of allowing himself to be pleased by what he's looking at. And I think nowadays, we were just talking about this at our men's group last Sunday, how, we're looking for something to entertain ourselves. We're looking for something to, we want to put something on and entertain ourselves. And one of the guys there says, it's so hard to find something. I'm looking through my streaming services. I'm looking through and it's like, that's bad. That's bad. That ain't great. That's bad. There's so much of the content that we look at nowadays. It's not great. And you really have to be careful about what you're allowing your eyes to see. And maybe that's something to think about for Herod, because again, what he allows his eyes to see end up making him do a pretty horrible thing. And so that's something for us to consider and to think about. So maybe those 2 points is a take home for tomorrow, to think about not worrying so much about how we appear to people, but worry about how we appear before God, number one. And number two, to be careful with how we entertain ourselves and what we're allowing ourselves to look at. Tomorrow's a strict fast day, and it's a time where we really do remember the beheading of St. John the Baptist, and we take it seriously. But hopefully we think of some of these things. Think about how we appear before God. Think about how God sees us, not worry about how men and women see us. And think about, well, what content are we consuming? How are we entertaining ourselves? What are we looking at? Make sure it's inappropriate. Make sure it's not tempting us in any way. And if it is, make that adjustment so that we can look at stuff that's going to be building us up in our relationship with Christ and getting us closer to Him, and doing that each and every day. Amen.